Alright guys, I read And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie this past week. It was an ebook, so I don't have it on hand with me, but I really enjoyed it. It's the first Agatha Christie book I've read, and honestly I think it was a great entry point. I know some of her books people love, some of them people don't like, so there's some back and forth. I think this was a great spot, personally without any other context. That's just my opinion. 10 people are stranded on an island, if you will. They're living in a very modern house, and slowly they become picked off one by one. They're murdered, and it's so intriguing watching the fear that is all around them, the suspense, everyone's mental states, which is actually remarkably stable. I think that if this was written in a more modern time period, this is not how it would have been portrayed, but it was really interesting to watch that, seeing how fear affected them and the inevitable, once the inevitable realization that they are going to die started settling into their brains, what that looked like for each character. One thing that is a huge pet peeve of mine in books is when characters start to die, usually more than one character, and their deaths are almost brushed off, like belittled, like, oh man, that really sucked, and then that's all we hear about it. It's like there's not real recognition that this person died and that was a life and that was precious. There's not enough of that. I hate that in books. I see it a lot in middle grade. I think it's because they're trying not to make the book dark, but the fact is if you're going to kill someone, it's going to have a significant effect on people. So that's something I really hate. I also hate the opposite, the over melodramatic scene where this person's dying and it's just too much. There's, tears and last words and all that nonsense. So I loved that this book hit the mark in between really well. It was both recognition of these deaths. People were sad. They didn't have previous emotional connections to the various people, so I think that's how she got away with it so well, but they were definitely affected, and I think she hit that balance perfect. In fact, even though 10 people died in this book, the value of life was almost magnified, especially, and I'm trying to find the balance here between spoilers, but if you get to the end of the book, I think you know what I'm talking about. The reasons for the murders, if you will, kind of makes sense. It almost magnifies in a twisted way the value of life. It was really intriguing. I loved reading the book. It was great. It was a little bit short, which I love a short book now and then. So yeah, that's my not very condensed thoughts on And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Oh, one other small thing. I love when stories use poems or lyrical like songs or something that we know, and they put it in a story and it's relative to the plot, directly relative to the plot. I actually saw this in Matched by Ali Condi. That was really one of the things I really loved about that first book, and it's also significant in And Then There Were None, which is, the whole title comes from the 10 Little Soldier Boys poem. So that was really fun to see, and yeah, it's a minor thing, but it kind of made an impression on me. So yeah, those are my thoughts on And Then There Were None. I'm not entirely sure what I'll be picking up next. I suspect it's going to end up being The Whipping Star by Frank Herbert. I keep staring at my bookshelf and trying to pick one to read.
I am on update for Rhythm of War. I am on chapter 17. I've only listened to 2 chapters, I think, maybe 3, since my last update. But that's because I've been focusing on Lord of the Rings, and I haven't really had any presents throughout. So, as for Lord of the Rings, I finished Fellowship. I don't know where I was last time I updated, but I finished Fellowship and I started Two Towers. I've only read the first chapter of Two Towers so far, but it's so good. If you don't know the story of Lord of the Rings, you've probably had enough time to read it, so I'm not too terribly worried about spoilers, but I don't really want to talk about spoilers. I'm, of course, loving Lord of the Rings and loving Stormlight. There was something that I was supposed to say about Stormlight. I can remember it. I don't know if I mentioned this in the last vlog update or not, but there's some decisions made by Dalinar in regards to Kaladin that, from a logical standpoint, make sense, but from a personal enjoyment standpoint, I don't want them to happen, because yeah, I'm not going to say why. But yes, there's some things that happened that I'm not sure that I like, but at the same time I absolutely see why they happened. So I think that's my update for right now. Two Towers is pretty short. I don't think it's the shortest of the three, but I think it's the second shortest of the three. And I'm super excited to continue reading through this book. Oh, that's one thing that I can mention about Lord of the Rings. So, in the way that Tolkien broke these books up, book 2 starts, well, let's see, book 2 follows, for the first half of the book, it follows the three hunters and Merry and Pippin. It follows their storyline. Whereas in the second half, it follows Frodo and Sam's storyline. And there's no crossover between chapters, so you can just read that whole big chunk of the certain characters and then finish that portion of the story and then move on to the chapters relating to the other characters. So I think that's a really cool way for him to have done it, and I think it works really well with these stories because then you don't have to there's like no cliffhangers that you're trying to deal with. Well, there are, but there's anyways. I think it's done really well, and I think it's a very interesting way to do it, and I think it works really well.
Hi everyone, I wanted to do an update for you all. I started reading The Whipping Star by Frank Herbert. There's a couple things that have stood out to me so far. One, they're trying to communicate with someone who doesn't understand a lot of concepts that we know, such as time, a more alien type of creature. I love watching them trying to communicate with that. It's so much fun. There's also just a lot of vocabulary in general in this book that I'm not familiar with, and I don't have an extremely large vocabulary as it is, so I'm having fun learning new phrases and words and things like that. Partly due to the fact that this creature doesn't speak in terms like we do, and so they're finding alternate ways to communicate and try and understand each other. It's a lot of fun. It's a really cool sci-fi. I am connected to the plot, and that's kind of driving me along with the stakes. Not as much of an emotional connection to the characters, which I think is, from the very few books I've read, is a little bit typical for a science fiction, and I don't have a lot of repertoire to pull that statement from, so take that with a grain of salt. However, there are certain aspects that the characters are directly involved with, their relationships that I am interested in and that I do like to see. So yeah, I'm interested to see where else this goes. It's a short read. I've only sat down maybe a handful of times and I'm already halfway through the book, so that's a lot of fun for me. And yeah, I'll keep you guys updated.
Okay, so this is going to be a slightly different type of update. I'm seeing if I like doing these or not. So this is, obviously you can't see me, I'm just going to be quickly talking about where I'm at in all of my books. So in The Two Towers, I'm on chapter 1 of book 2, or book 4 rather, of The Lord of the Rings. So it's transitioned from the three hunters and the two remaining hobbits, of the Fellowship. It's transitioned from them and is now going to Sam and Frodo. So that's where I'm at in Lord of the Rings, and then in Rhythm of War, I'm on chapter 53. I'm primarily listening to Rhythm of War on audiobook. So I've actually made some decent progress. I think since my last update, I've read 20 chapters or so. So yeah, that's where I'm at with both of those. I don't really think I have anything else that I need to update you guys on. Let me know what you think of this type of update. I don't know that I like it, but I wanted to try it at least once to see what it was like. All right.
For you. I've been working through The Whipping Star by Frank Herbert, and I haven't made a real significant amount of progress since we last talked, but I'm really enjoying it. It's pulling me along in a different way than I expected. I know I've talked a lot about how I'm drawn into a story by the characters and the themes primarily, And the characters in here are drawing me in, but they're so different from a lot of books I've read. One, like they're not heroes. They don't feel like heroes in a lot of ways. They're sometimes working towards a heroic goal, but they don't necessarily feel like heroes. It's hard to know what to think of it. I am enjoying it, and maybe when I've gotten a little more progress done on it, I'll have a better grasp at what I think of it. But I am enjoying the reading process. I've been surprised a lot. There's been several plot twists that really throw me off, some dynamics between characters that are really intriguing and mysterious almost, trying to figure out what's going on in every situation. There's a lot of mystery surrounding it. It's a lot of fun, a lot of unknowns. So yeah, I'm still working on this, and hopefully I'll have it done soon, but I am enjoying the read.
So, Lord of the Rings, I'm still reading The Two Towers. I am on chapter 4 of book 4. Well over halfway through the book. I guess you can't see that probably. I'm about 100 pages from the end of The Two Towers. I could read that in a day realistically if I had the time to sit down and read it. I don't know that I will get to, but it won't take me much longer to finish Two Towers. Rhythm of War. I don't know. I've been listening to it online, on Audible, so I don't have the exact location of each chapter. I'm on chapter 70 of Rhythm of War, so I'm less than 400 pages from the end of this book as well. There was some things that I really liked, that I'm actually really liking about this book, and I didn't mention them in my last vlog update. So I mentioned in my first one, I think, that there was some things that went on between Kaladin and Dalinar that I wasn't sure that I liked. But with the way that Brandon Sanderson is writing the story and directing Kaladin's character, I'm really liking looking back, I'm really liking what he did now. I think it's very interesting for his character. I think he's got a lot of character development in this book, and I think his relationship with Syl is very interesting. It's very important to the story, obviously, but she acts in many ways as a catalyst for Kaladin's growth, and that's very good. There's some things that, for those who have read the books, you'll understand what I'm saying, but for those who haven't read these books, shouldn't be a spoiler. But with Kaladin, with him take his issues with taking the next oath, or saying the next oath, or whatever, however it's worded, he said something earlier in the book that I'm not sure if it's actually going to be true, and it made me really sad when he said it, because I was like, I can see with the way his character is going, I can see how it's going to be true, but his character back then compared to his character now is very different, and I think that may no longer be true. So anyways, I'm excited to continue through this book. Also, some of the other characters that we're getting to follow, I'm really liking. Navani has never been my favorite character, but there's a certain aspect to her, really her scholarly side, is very interesting to me. Her wanting to know more of how these things work. I can relate to that. I don't love her character, and I don't love her, but there's some things about her that's very interesting, and same with really all the characters. There's a lot of really cool things about these books, and about these characters specifically. One of the things that I'm absolutely loving is seeing all of the other Cosmere references, all the references to other things in the Cosmere, because there are so many. Like, every single chapter is full of them, especially the Navani chapters. But like, I'm seeing them and I'm understanding them because I've read most of his Cosmere now. There's a couple of them that I haven't read, but I've read most of them, and it's really cool to see. So that is that for my update. We will see you guys next time.